Omnath deck, but it's going to be going up against Rodney here on Is It Prowess. We've seen this a few times today. We know how explosive this can be. This might be the first time Spencer's going up against it to see how good this deck can be in the face of this new powerhouse in Modern.
Yes, and Rodney is someone that we see a lot here. Did really well about 2 years ago when it came to our legacy. There was just a period where Rodney was winning or finalizing every legacy event that we put on. Rodney still does great in all the other formats, but really someone who I think does well in these formats where there's a lot of micro decisions and the ability to sort of play the game very differently every time because all your spells are so cheap. So it's not surprising to see a deck like Is It Prowess where it is, you are going to end the game, you're going to be proactive, but you can sequence your spells in lots of different ways. I would totally guess that Rodney is playing this sort of deck, or maybe something like the Just Guy Cincy deck we saw last round.
I love what you did there. It is. No, just me? Okay.
Yeah. No. Respect for the game. Real recognize real moment.
One thing I do want to point out, this is slightly different to, we say Is It, but it's actually Jeskai, because we do have prismatic endings in the main deck. The mana base, obviously, we've got 2 Sacred Foundries to give us that white mana that we need. And in the sideboard, we've got a few white cards, which we'll touch on a little bit later. So kind of their own spin on this very powerful deck that's now popping up in Modern, courtesy of Core Steel Cutter.
All right.
Double bauble start. Let's go. You can draw.
Yeah, it looks like Rodney kept a 1-lander, I think, on a mulligan here. Had the Corey Steel Cutter, but did not get there. And I think, has a lot of powerful cards in hand, but not enough mana to play them. So now, of note, we have this as Is It Prowess on the screen, but it is Jeskai. Rodney is playing Prismatic Ending along with a couple other white cards.
Right, we found our second land drop. Okay, that's key. But the problem is we have kind of let Spencer have a few turns to set up that mana base, which we know can be problematic in a 4-color deck, being able to cast Flage on 2. So now it's in the graveyard exactly where we want it. So everything we do now, if it does have that exchange of 1-for-1s, later on down the line, we will be able to get it back. And of course, that is a great way of starting to turn the corner as we use the plot mechanic for this Slick Shot show-off.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Spencer did sort of get some free turns there, and being on the draw, that's huge. One of the big advantages of the Prowess deck is, it has all these cheap spells like we talked about, but also typically gets on board so quickly and so powerfully that punishes Spencer for having turns like this turn 3 that's stock up. That is sort of, with Spencer's deck, you either play stock up on turn 33 or turn 3, right? You kind of either use it to sculpt at the beginning of your game or the end of the game. So getting to sort of have this turn where Spencer just gets to be like, okay, I'm going to pick up, an answer to a cutter, answer to a Slick Shot, and have that little bit of extra breathing room is going to be very crucial.
Stock up. Do you think it would be more powerful or less powerful if those 3 extra cards went to the graveyard?
More powerful, not close.
No, you're the game designer out of the two of us. I like to get your opinion on things.
That's like a landmine question.
We found our third land drop here in Rodney, so starting the turn off with Core Steel Cutter.
Okay, and of note, Spencer missed that land drop last turn, I believe, right?
Correct.
So that's huge. A little tit for tat happening here.
Getting in there for a bunch of damage. Here's Lava Dart. Now it's going to do 1 trigger. Do we have something like a Solitude in hand? No, we're just going to take that. That's going to be a hit for what? 6 plus the dart 7?
Yeah, I mean, you get, the dart does 3 and then 3 more and then 1. So you got 7 all together. Spencer gained that little bit of extra life with Flage and did pick up an island.
Oh, do you reckon there's a little debate there? Like, oh, I missed my land drop. Oh no, it's all going to go wrong for me. And then boom, get ya.
I know there's a famous Brad Nelson play where he did that, but I don't think Spencer did that here. His deck's a little mana hungry,
Well, this is a great rebuild. We're going to go Dragon Age Chandler into an EI. Surveil, that's going to be a mountain. Don't want that one. That's going to go into the graveyard. Look at the top 3. One's going to go to exile. One's going to go in hand. One's going to go to the bottom. Looks like we're going to play Surveil land from exile. I think we like that card. Yeah, we're going to keep it there.
And this is one of the nice parts of the Prowess deck, right? It plays a lot of cantrips and card selection cards, and you get to do that because your threats turn those into extra damage. Or something like a burn deck, you just have to play a bunch of deal 3s and hope that they come together. You don't have these kind of flexible rebuildy games that Rodney is getting to play right now that puts Spencer in a bit of an awkward spot.
Spencer, grip for the cards. I think might even still have 8 cards in hand now. Does have the land drop for the turn though. So I did see a Solitude, which is a great answer to anything crazy, anything hasty that's going to come out and potentially get massive and do a bunch of damage. Galactic Discharge is going to be fired off in our main phase. Why are we doing that?
We just want to make sure that this like immunogenic growth happens. It doesn't hit us for 2 more, right? Like if Rodney's going to protect the card, that's going to save you a little bit of life.
Makes a lot of sense here. Starting off with a Tethered Swift Spear into a Preordain. Get the top 2 to the bottom. Don't want those. Draw a blank card, which is going to be another EI.
Yeah, and one of the big differences between 4-color today and 4-color of old is 4-color of old really played counter spells and things like that. And sometimes it even go as far as Eternal Witness and try and, really grind the game out. This deck doing a lot more of just 1-for-1 removaling. So these cards are going to happen a lot more than if you've been just coming back to Modern, you might not expect that as Solitude. Getting rid of Omnath.
Omnath.
Yeah, that's a loud play from Spencer.
Is that just a complete show of strength here of how good my hand is, or was that a needed play? Because our life total is still quite healthy.
Yeah, I think that's a really like a show of strength from Spencer because both those cards are really strong. I could very easily imagine Spencer just sort of taking the 4, going to 16, playing the Omnath, go back to 16, and even if it dies, it's just not the end of the world.
Mason, do you watch wrestling? Do you know what WWE? Okay, well, this is to everybody in chat that does. This card that just been played is the real Ripley of MTG cards. Mummy has entered the battlefield. Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. Only a one of here in the deck, but is a very big threat. A 4/7 with vigilance. Doubles your triggers, turns all the triggers off from your opponent's side. So a lot can happen. Is it going to affect this matchup enough?
It's pretty big. I mean, Solitude answers 2 things now. That's massive. Just your Leyline bindings, answer 2 things. Now, the ETB is getting turned off. Not that huge. 4/7 body, kind of massive in some ways.
Oh, yeah, this is going to go up the ground. And also be able to close out the game in 4 turns as well.
All right, there's Slick Shot, though.
I don't think we can get there this turn. Like it would have to be a lot of mutagenics and a double strike.
I think it would, and also I think Spencer might have another Solitude in hand. So even if we tried to get there, and you see Spencer doesn't want to have the clock change, so responding to the 2 triggers, keeping Rodney at 14, so it's a 4-turn clock. And we saw this when we watched Spencer play versus Will Kruger as well. He really tries to close the door on these games, sort of prioritizing getting the opponent dead. So this makes sense. He could have maybe baited Rodney into casting something like a bolt, or maybe some sort of double strike spell, got a little bit more value, but instead wants to, instead of having to draw 1 more answer spell, just end the game a bit quicker.
This is like it's an interesting turn because there's a lot to talk about there. Like I feel like I'm greedy, I guess, in that spot. I would have wanted to see how many spells they're willing to commit before I fire off that Solitude. But doing it this way means that, as I said, that clock, obviously we've got the Flagellant of Gold, which absolutely got slammed down there, straight down out the graveyard. Gonna be able to do, is this 6 to the face?
Yeah, it doubles the ETB, so that's going to be 6. And you're seeing why Spencer did this, right? He's putting the game, and I agree. I'm very much like I would want to try to get the cards out of my opponent's hand, but Spencer's really valuing closing the door with this 4-color deck, and that might just be one thing you have to do with this new version of the deck is actually end games quickly. Unlike before, where you would want to be more about like, okay, cast your spells, try and get the advantage I can.
Do you have the ending though? That's what the white mana in the deck. Great answer to that Flage once it came out of the graveyard.
Gotta note that Spencer, local to me, Flage is signed by somebody else.
I know, right? The disrespect. I'm sorry that you have to commentate on this game.
It's
he's dressed sharp though. He's dressed sharp. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's ready.
Look at that. He is locked in. I love it. I love everything about it. Spencer might be my MVP for today.
Oh! And I love it too. There's a smile. He's like, all right, you got the 3-for-1 there on the Elish Norn.
What?
Yeah, just bolt, dart.
All right, well, we're surviving.
Yeah, and Spencer here looks to just be drawing some cards. Nothing to play right now. Has a lot of really good draws that can take over the game.
Is one of them a stock up? That's going to be a great way of finding something. I see a Teferi. I think that's a Wrath of the Skies and 2 unknowns on my screen.
Yeah, it looks right to me. It's a very great way to just sort of get a redraw here. Not going to be doing anything too impressive, but doesn't do much of this matchup anyways. And when you have cards like Flage, I could totally see just wanting that. A little unclear on what he picked.
Let's have a look what else we got. So we've got land drop for the turn into Renin 6.
All right, minus on Rodney. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and Rodney has a lava dart, so Rodney can, kill this Ren with another one, but it gets to start with an EI. Very quickly bottomed a card.
Preordain. We're digging.
And you're seeing too, right? Like this is why players are really drawn to these prowessy decks. We put up a lot of good pressure. Spencer's gained, an extra like 12 life this game, right? And we had a little bit of a slower start, but we've also just battled through a ton.
I think we found a prismatic ending. I think we've got the answer.
All right. Well, ending's good. That plays here.
Into the ending. Surveil. Moving at speed as well over Rodney's side. Like really, really good. I love it when players play fast, but also like extremely well, because I just can't do it myself.
Yeah, Rodney being very methodical here.
That needs to be exiled if we can get that down to the table.
Yep, Ren 6 should be exiled.
Cards in the graveyard are really important in this deck because of the card Flage.
Yep.
Gonna go shuffle, get one land out of our deck here. It hits us up to 7. Is there any need to basically save a fetch land in case we draw an Omnath or anything like that, or is it that's just not important right now in this part of the game?
It's definitely something you want to think about. It just depends on kind of where you're at. I think right here, surveilling is just so much more important because, you have got Rodney at dead to like 7 or 8 cards in your deck. You just need to find one of them. And Rodney's also, we talked about it's played a long game, has used most of the refuel cards. I think we've cast 3 of the 4 EIs. We've cast like 3 preordains.
Slick shot off the top. It's got a lot of work to do. Leyline's Binding is a nice answer for that. Pass the turn back. And you got to expect there's going to be answers going on. Like Spencer's got all this mana, not doing anything with them. Pass the turn. Flage. Yeah. And there's the scoop. Like, that's all it is. You show me the threat, and the Flage straight to the dome is going to be enough for Spencer to take this game 1 down. So we're going to go to the sideboards for both of these players. Let's start over on Rodney's side. So, Blood Moon. Wear and Tear, because remember, we've got access to that white mana. Consigned to Memory. We've got the Magabing Lizard. Don't think it's the matchup for it. Path to Exile, Spell Pierce, and Torment's Crypt.
Magebane Lizard. It's an interesting card. It's really good against Storm, something we haven't seen a ton of so far today. But that card is just like kind of a house in that matchup. It does get a couple points in here. If you wanted to go threat heavy, I could see something like that just to have it. But Blood Moon is the one that jumps out to me. I mean, that one is just going to make Spencer's life really tough when it comes to casting his spells. Traditionally, Blood Moon wasn't, the biggest deal in the world for these 4-color decks. You often could beat them, but it's a lot less popular. So players have built their mana bases differently, and the decks are constructed, fairly differently. So I imagine we're not going to see that. Wear Tear makes a decent amount of sense to me, just to even answer things like Leyline Binding, and maybe they have some, sideboard card that you could be potentially afraid of. I don't think that's really going to come in. That would be like a game 3 thing, I think, but I can understand maybe hedging, especially if, you think the deck plays a lot of it. But for the most part, I think Rodney wants to be really proactive here in game 1. Maybe Spell Pierce is just a better version of that Wear Tear when you're on the play, and sort of, just sort of beat down on Spencer, force him to play his stock ups, and then boom, Spell Pierce, finish him off.
Are we worried about Flage at all? Like, is that, should we be bringing in the Torment's Crypt? Should we bring in the Path to Exiles? Or is that more, if we're on the draw type card, on the play, we need to get this game, and the best way for us to do that is keeping all our, combo, powerful, big shot cards in the main?
Yeah, I think your best bet to beat a Flage is just make sure that the escape clause doesn't matter, because the escape is where things really get bad. So you have Prismatic Ending. If you want to keep 1 or 2 of those in, that's a great way to answer a Flage. That also maybe just a better version of Wear Tear outside of the Leyline Binding interaction. So I imagine that what's really happening here is, like, when you look at Rodney's deck, the card Prismatic Ending has some role, but isn't great. and then everything else is pretty on plan. Maybe you cut a mutagenic growth or two because there's not as much damage base removal. There's just Flage. And then you bring in, a couple Spell Pierce. And then maybe, if you really want something like that, you bring in a Path to Exile, but then Blood Moon obviously comes in. Well, by the way, speaking of Spencer's deck, we've talked about this a lot. Doesn't have a lot of cards for matchups like this. In the sideboard, just Veil of Summer, Charmaw, Endurance, Damping Sphere, Consign, and Boseiju really has specific matchups in mind and is hard targeting them and says, my deck can beat things like this on its own. I don't need the help.
Would you like, because obviously Ronnie needs a high density of cards in a turn to win. Would that mean that Dancing Sphere is coming in, or is it just too slow?
I could see it just because this deck does win with like a flurry of spells quite often, and Spencer's deck's playing one spell at a time. It really depends on what cards in the main deck Spencer has that he doesn't like. I typically don't love these kind of Damping Sphere cards versus Prowess, because especially on the draw, you just spend your turn 2 kind of doing nothing, and if they go creature into creature, it just doesn't matter. But it can be super big, especially if your opponent's on a low land count. And that's the big thing. If they try to play, a 2 to 3 mana game and use their, mana cheat, then that's going to be punishing. If they can just make their land drops, it's not going to be that big a deal. So it's really going to matter on the texture of the game.
I was wondering if you had a second land drop there for when you decided to surveil the Dragon Age channel into the graveyard. Then preordain, we went top. So we've got a plan. No delirium just yet, but that could change as this fetch goes in. So we just need one more type. Bauble would do it. An instant would do it. Just a lightning bolt straight to the face.
Yeah, lightning bolt would be pretty big here, actually.
We're going to fetch, and this is going to give us the white source that we need. So that's going to give us access in case, if the wear and tears came in, or the pass, or if it is just the prismatic endings. Slight little alteration towards the usual Izzet decks that we have seen floating around, especially today and online. Lava Dart, that's just as good. That's fine. Prowess trigger. Not Prowess trigger, Surveil trigger, sorry. Keep card on top. Get in there for 3 points of damage on turn 2. Exactly what you want to be doing with Dragon Age Channel.
Yeah, and this is, a really good start here for Rodney. Getting that 3/3 attacking on turn 2 with only 4 cards in the graveyard. You're feeling good about it, and now Spencer has to have an answer. And he might have been hoping for a card like Wrenn and 6 to catch a card like DRC, and force Rodney to have a really good draw, but Rodney has it.
We're going to go Wrenn and 6, Endurance, shoot it. You watch.
Maybe, yeah. As we are going to see, Spencer jokes about having the Wrenn and 6 minus.
Picking up the card. You just forget how much advantage just a Wrenn and 6 can generate. Right? It's a 2-mana Planeswalker that early turns can shoot off a lot of these creatures, the Oslet Pride or Dragon Age Channelers in this instance. But also, it can't deal with it. This is key. It goes up to 4 loyalty. So it is, as we'd say, bolt proof here. Cut 3 damage will not get it off the board. Could use the Lava Dart. Don't think we're going to do it this turn. Or are we even concerned about this Wrenn and 6? Is it doing anything to our game plan?
I don't even know if it matters. I can't make out Rodney's hand, but generally, one of the nice things about Wrenn and 6 is it just provides a lot of lands, and we're kind of at the point where all of our creatures dodge the Wrenn minus. So really all Wren's doing is making sure Spencer hits all his land drops. Now, that is, a big part of Spencer's deck. Having a Wrenn and 6 sometimes is just all you need for your draw to work, because it gives you that 2 or 3 lands that you needed to curve out perfectly. That being said, hitting Spencer in the face for 3 damage is a great way to sort of invalidate those turns as well. So I'm interested to see how Rodney wants to play this, because absorbing 6 damage here from between the Bolt and the DRC, for example, it's going to save Spencer a lot. Yeah, it looks like Rodney went face.
I believe we know about the fetch land that's in there, but also I think we've got Flage in hand. So that's going to be a nice answer to take the Dragon Age Channel off the board if we decide to go that route. I think there's also stock up in hand, I saw. So we've got ways to basically deal with the board and kind of refuel if we get to that mid to late game. Which is if Rodney's going to do everything that possibly can to not get to that point. Here's the Surveil, which all these things are going to stack. Lava Dart in the graveyard is perfect, especially if next turn, if we're able to go Flage this turn and untap and get a slick shot show off, we could just be going to a game 3 that quickly.
Yep. And attacking Spencer down to 9, Bolt in hand, Dart in yard, basically means we're at 4.
Double Dart in bin. That's what I mean. It's scary now.
It's very scary.
Play the Windswept Heath. It's probably going to get the plains. Yep, keep our life total nice. This also gives us Flage mana with the Triome. We are missing. No, that's it. That's all for 5 types now.
That's all 5 types. Yeah, we're also a little insulated from Blood Moon.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
Return this. Then here comes the Flage. Now, is it a positive or negative that we're returning these lands from our graveyard to our hand when we want to add them in to be stocking up our graveyard?
I think right now it looks like Spencer doesn't have a lot of lands in hand, so this is a pretty big dub for Spencer. You do see Spencer has Endurance in hand with the 2 Lava Darts in yard. Potentially could have, done that as the play in order to clean up the graveyard and then make it so these Lava Darts can't trigger prowess on this Slick Shot, and would have forced Rodney to, lose the lands. Could also have done it in the main phase and then minus on the Ren to kill the DRC. So lots of plays available here. That's one of the hard parts of this deck, is just how many options you have available on each turn.
Is there any turn to Endurance before the Slick Shot resolves?
Yeah, I mean, and it's possible I missaw his hand. I thought I saw a green card. He also could have hard casted it, to be fair. But yeah, I think you would want to Endurance beforehand, because the Slick Shot now, that turns it into bolts essentially, right? So unless you have a Solitude.
Oof. Lightning bolt to the face. So that's 8. We're at Solitude or bust pretty much. That Slick Shot is 5 power, 6, 7, 8 power. That is going to be lethal if the life totals are correct and there is no Solitude. Looking at the grip, says you got me. We're going to go to a game 3 here. That was really calm. Just looks up. You got me. It's all good.
Yeah, and I wonder there too if he's thinking, maybe I should have done that there. Thinks about the different lines, and that's one of the hard parts. It's hard to pass up Flage, answer the DRC, but also, like tapping out for this Endurance, playing the Boseiju from your hand means you don't have a cutter answer, right? It's a very weird spot to be in.
How do you get there? So I fall short of this as well, and I know that you do a lot of coaching. How can I untrain myself to kind of get laser focused into a play? Flage is on paper, it's going to kill the creature, it's going to gain me life, it's going to go in my graveyard. These are all 3 positives to me. But the way that kind of turn played out, it looked like it might have actually been better if we used the Endurance, which is kind of not the optimal play there on face up. So how can I train myself to kind of look at all my options every turn and pick the best one, opposed to being laser guided into just one play and it not panning out?
The thing I always kind of try to remind people about in coaching is, like, at the start of the turn, you should ask yourself, what does winning the game for me look like from here? And what does winning the game for my opponent look like from here? And if you're doing that from early on, it doesn't slow you down that much, right? You have a running tally of, okay, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. And asking yourself, Spencer's position, how do I lose from here if I do the Flage thing? It probably involves the card Slick Shot Show Off, but it definitely involves the 2 Lava Darts in the graveyard. And so having a line is like, can I beat that? Yeah, I can play this Boseiju, I can Endurance down the graveyard, and then my Red and 6 can just minus on this DRC. That makes it so you're so unlikely to have something happen. And if Rodney does go, Lava Dart flashback, Rodney's on 1 mana. So playable, but not, in a great spot to be in. So Spencer really kind of puts Rodney, behind the 8 ball, develops a 3/4, which also saves you from everything. So it's a spot of, like, Flage, I think, is the heuristic, play this, develop it, try and get off the graveyard, gain a little life. Those things heuristically are really good, but heuristics are often the death of tournaments.
Both players are going down to 6. Didn't like the opening hands. Chat does point out the correct thing, that we can't hard cast it because we got the Xander's Lounge does not produce the green. But
we had a Forest and a Boseiju in hand, because we played Forest on turn 1 and we had Boseiju in hand, so it's green.
Oh, so instead of
at some point we cheated then, if that's the case, because Red and 6 was cast. So there was a green there and there was a Boseiju in hand. So Spencer had the ability to play the Endurance. He had to main phase it, right? But that's, it's the matter of just, taking the where you're at and working from there. Now, it's possible I missaw the Endurance, and Spencer's going to message me, bro, I didn't have it afterwards, but I'm pretty positive Boseiju was in hand there.
No, we're using hindsight as well. Things that happen up to that point. But if you could work that play out, that was the better line. That's such a heads up play. Remember, Spencer's not playing a quick fast deck. Probably doesn't have a lot of time between rounds to get hydrated, get some food, and then have a little bit of rest, turn the brain off slightly. This is a bit of a complicated deck, and going up against complicated aggro decks where the second turn we're going to have to play our Otawara, which isn't ideal.
It's not ideal at all, and it's not ideal for the mana. We joked about how Flash, maybe kind of tricked us last game. You do really want to cast that card in the early turns, typically. And so not even having the potential to threaten that here really kind of gives a green light to Rodney. If let's say that was a Plains, Rodney might think about what happens if Flash comes down next turn. Now Rodney knows Flash is a card I don't need to worry about for at least one more turn if Spencer doesn't have his little sneaky Planar Genesis in hand.
Remember, we did mulligan down to 6, so that means that we might have to keep some of the awkward hands, and this is one of the downsides to these Omnath decks. 4 colors isn't free. It sometimes feels free with fetch lands, but if you don't have it, it's going to have these awkward draws like this, and we do not have a fetch land on Spencer's side just yet. So how are we going to utilize this to our advantage? Slight little stumble maybe, as we're going to go Dragon Rage Channeler into Preordain. In response, we're going to go this Planar Genesis, one of the newer cards seeing play, I would say, in Modern. I did see a couple of these last night at FNM, and now seeing it played here at the NRG. We can look at the top 4 cards of our library. We can put a land from among them into the battlefield tapped. But if we don't, we can put one of those cards into our hand. The rest go in the bottom in any order.
I think it's a no land situation, but there was an Omnath and a Damping Sphere. Now, we talked about, we were a little unsure on where we felt with Damping Sphere and everything. This is a spot where maybe, if you miss, you can play it, and then if Rodney's light on lands. But I think Spencer is wanting to play around something by Planar Genesis first. Traditionally, you would let your opponent resolve their cantrip, right, and their surveils with less information. But now Rodney knows, you didn't get the land, you're spell heavy, maybe even need the land, right? Looks like Spencer does have a Steam Vents in hand, so he's got a little something. But yeah, and binning the expressive iteration there.
Is that just a show of strength? We don't need it, or just kind of smell a little bit of blood in the water here? You're stumbling on that other side. You also just missed another land off that planar. So I need to just look for burn cells. I don't really want to take a turn off to set up even more. I want to try and, while the iron's hot, strike.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's hard to know this turn what that tells you, but over the next turn or so, that's a moment you look back on and you're like, okay, did we bin the EI because we were missing lands, or did we bin the EI because we had another one and we were looking to actually get spells that matter, right? That's one of those things that you can't always get the correct read on in the moment, but you can use, future knowledge to infer backwards to sort of what happened earlier in the game, as Steam Vents is going to be used to get rid of the DRC.
Okay, so I'm full of questions and I love it. Why are we getting rid of the DRC over the Swift Spear? The Swift Spear's got prowess and can get bigger.
I assume this is a situation of just wanting the game to stall out a bit and not wanting the sculpting to happen here with the DRC. And so you get disabled energy. This also makes Wrath of the Skies something that you can just do for white, which, to be fair, we're very far from right now, mana-wise. But it does sort of come up a little bit there. It's also, once again, the mutagenic growth thing we talked about. If we mutagenic growth the Swift Spear, then that would save it, and we would not get anything.
When it comes to Swift Spear into EI, in response, here comes another planar. So again, look at the top 4. I see an Endurance, I see a land, I see another Dampening Sphere. So it looks like both of those did come in.
I wonder if Spencer's trying to bluff Force of Negation. He doesn't have it in his deck, but that would make sense as to why he's looking at cards beforehand, right? He might be trying to signal to Rodney, hey, I've got something that could maybe stop this EI.
So EI, 1 to exile, 1 to hand, 1 to the bottom of the library. Mutagenic Growth got slammed into the exile part, which makes sense with 2 Swift Spears.
Yeah, and Rodney kind of shook the head like, yeah, that's good. Makes you wonder if maybe there's some others in hand. This is really close, if not, putting Spencer to dead. I mean, these are huge Swift Spears.
How much damage is this?
Well, each Swift Spear is 4. The mutagenic one is 6, so that's 10. That puts Spencer to 5. So that's a lot of damage.
There's a fetch land. We need basic land Omnath, fetch lands.
Yeah, you can fetch the plains for Omnath, play Omnath, and then off a fetch land, and that could maybe stabilize you. That would sort of do it, but we just took 10.
Definitely. There's a stock up in hand.
Yeah. And there are 2 stock ups.
Ugh. That's a Solitude.
Okay, that does a little something.
Is Solitude white card enough here?
It really depends on what Rodney has, right? Rodney doesn't have a lava dart that's known to Spencer. We know Rodney has one in hand, so that will be a lethal card on its own, forcing both Swiss Spears to be answered.
Another thing that you got to point out from when we're talking about the older versions of these 4-card decks in this is there's no ephemerates in these decks, which is obviously huge when you've got things like Solitudes in your deck. So using things like planars and stock ups, they're taking the spot of that powerful 1-mana spell. But right now, Spencer, I'm sure, would love to have an ephemerate to be able to potentially get both of these Swiss Spears off the battlefield.
Yeah, I also wonder maybe Spencer had to fetch the planes before stock upping so that Galvanic Discharge was a draw. But also maybe, we were thinking about cards like Ending or whatever. So it kind of splits both ways, right? All right. And Spencer should be down to 3 here at minimum off this fetch. Oh, and it looks like Spencer's trying to get a white. But
white for
Wrath the Skies.
Wrath of the Skies. We've got 2 energy. I think we verbally said it when he's putting him down and just showing the hand. There's the shake. Rodney's going to get this done with Jeskai prowess. Spencer stumbling there, and the later the game got, unfortunately. But my camera's decided to mess up. There you go. We're back again. It's pointing at my face camera. There we go. But welcome back, everybody. If you just tuned in, that was a bit of a anti-climax in that last game. It didn't really do what it did, but we saw Jeskai doing what it says, and of course, spending that extra bit of white in it. It came in handy having those prismatic endings.
It definitely did, yeah. And having this really showed the efficiency of like having a ton of 1s versus these powerful 3 and 4s. Powerful 3 and 4s can take over the game, but you have to kind of get there. Sometimes you stumble, you get 1 too many. And Planar Genesis, if it had hit any land, I think would have maybe been a game-winning moment, right? We would have jumped to 4, jumped to Omnath, would have had that going. Instead, put in an awkward position. But still very live. This is a 7-round tournament. Spencer can make top 8. Ryan Bedell looking like a good position to be in our top 8. 5-0, 7 rounds. Typically, that's a double draw. We don't know for sure. We'll figure that out when round 8 comes, where Drake and Devin take that for you. But we still have one more match before Will and I go, at a backup feature match.
Yeah, because Will's got to sort his camera out. It's ever drifting to the left for some reason. So this is time shifted, of course, everyone. So it's going to be played a little bit faster than you'd normally see. Ruby Storm versus the Blue-Black Flicker deck. Connor versus Devin here. Now, face up, I'm going to say that the Storm deck's going to be favored game 1. Is it? Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I think so. I think Connor Mullally is favored here. He, one of our regulars who does incredibly well, been at a bunch of our champs, been playing some Pro Tours recently as well, having some good finishes. Likes playing, I would say, typically like either the best deck or like a combo deck. We've seen Connor do a lot of like blue-black mid-range in Standard, or like Breach in Modern before Breach was the best deck. Used to play a lot of Dredge when he was first up and coming. That was one of the decks that he was a big fan of. See him here on Storm, and sort of makes sense. A lot of players really like Storm, but the data is really inconclusive when it comes to this. When we look at the Frank Carson data, the confidence interval is massive, implying, there's not a ton of like for sureness despite a large play size. Some people play Ruby Storm and, they feel like it's one of the best decks, and it makes draws that definitely make that happen. Turn 2 kills are something that you can see from the Ruby Storm deck, and turn 3 is not that unrealistic as Round Monsoon Mage comes down.
Good talking while I'm messing around with this camera. I like to see it. It's good. I think I'm back. I think it's pointing at my face now. It's all good. Right. So these are the sort of things that we can interact with, though, right here on these are not the correct names on the screen, but it's fine. This is who we got. It's Devin versus Connor, haven't we? So Connor on the O is going to be over on the Ruby Storm side here. Having creatures like the Row down is one of the only things we can interact with. We've got Solitudes. We've also got Interceptors if we kind of get to the 3 mana. We've got Orcish Bowmaster because we need to put as much damage as we possibly can on. And here's that Solitude that I was speaking about. Just getting it off the board now. Don't give them any interaction. Don't let them have the card that reduces the spells from the deck, because of course they need to be able to pop off and do a lot of them to be able to win with something like Grape Shot, or as one of the newer cards has been printed recently is the what's the dragon called? I can say it's like Dragon Storm. But look at the deck. It doesn't even look like we're playing
Scale
any.
Dragon is the name. It's a joke on the Storm Scale. But yeah, Artist Talent into Felia.
Yeah, we're not playing it. All right, cool. So it was just going old school Grape Shot to face type wins.
Yeah, I think the dragon has some things that are nice about it, but it's definitely not, like best in slot. There are upsides for sure, but there's still a lot of good with the OG stuff here.
Now we've got to that third mana, and this is key. This is where we've got a lot of our like better cards, so to speak.
Oh.
Here comes the beautiful. Okay, so talk me through that interaction we just seen there with Flicker Wisp.
Yeah, so Flicker Wisp came down. It flipped a Valakut, the Awakening, which is a land. So normally a land would come back, but since it's an MDFC, it comes back as the face-up side, which in this case is a sorcery, just goes straight to the graveyard. Now that means, we're in a position where we got the Stone Rain Connor, not always the greatest, but hard to pass up. And in a deck like this, we talked about, you're going to be struggling game one to have meaningful interaction. So this is a great way to have that.
Okay, here we go. We're going to cast the first ritual. That saga that you see on the board is Artist's Talent. The first part of that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you discard a card. If you do, draw cards. It's going to let us kind of filter through our deck, find those cards that we need. Then we're going to crack the fetch that we've just got. Go find ourselves another mountain. Beautiful mountains, we might add. All signed as well.
Yeah, great mountains here. I wonder if we're going to see something like maybe level up the talent.
So we've got 3 mana floating company now, right? Oh, there you go. Yeah, we are going to level it up, as you said. So now non-creature spells you can cast cost 1 less. That's the reducer that these decks kind of rely on.
Yep. Yeah, so Connor's just showing here, it's 3 mana to level it up to 2. So we use the floating mana from the ritual. Then the land that we fetched up, that's what's casting the next ritual. Because now it costs 1 less, much like a Ruby Medallion.
This is like, 1, why I don't play Storm decks, and 2, why I don't like playing against Storm decks, because I have to play the Storm deck. No matter what side I'm on, I've got to play it. I've got to make sure that the mana's the correct. Let's float in, watch them play, see what it is they do, especially if there's a row out and they start rolling, flipping the coin, see if they take damage or not. We flip over the top 2. It's going to be a ritual and a mountain. Have we got no more cards left in hand?
Yeah, we're top decking. Connor used the mana that turn to set this up. I think, with the potential to potentially keep going, did not get there on that. And now the Artist Talent is going to get, it's going to get Witch Enchanted, actually.
This doesn't seem good at all. Like, normally Storm, when they want to go off, they need to go off. Or was this just, did they think they're not going to have a great other opening to do it, so we're going to try and do it this turn and hope for the best?
I think that's what Connor was looking for. You got a couple rummages there with the Artist Talent and sort of, try to get us in a spot where it's like, okay, we can maybe win the game from here. But didn't get there. And this is one of the awkward things, quote unquote, about this Storm deck is it's very powerful, but it doesn't consistently always win when it goes off. It often wins. It has a lot of ways to, but you can whiff and sort of be in an awkward position. So yeah, Connor does not want to take a damage from the Ral. Wants to get the ritual in the graveyard for the Past in Flames. Fortunately, Fatal Push is going to answer the Ral there, but required a lot more. And then White Orchid Phantom comes down. Doesn't really do much here, as Felia is getting bigger from flickering our own thing. I think we're saying, hey, I'm flickering this Ral. Bring it back in. Yeah, I mean, wow, White Orchid Phantom and friends, they got it done. They don't have a ton of cards that line up super, super great, Will, but in that spot, they lined up just enough, and the Storm deck fizzled. I don't think that's the way to say it. We got a bunch of rummaging off, and we didn't quite get there.
Like, I feel like it beat itself in that instance. You know what I mean? It's very hard for these Flicker decks to be able to take down game 1 with, especially the tools. They definitely need their sideboard, but taking that first one is going to feel great. We're going to go back down to the game. It's live. They're in game number 3. So that means Connor won the second one to take us to this third game. So let's get down to it. Let's not miss any more of the action.
Yep. And it looks like they are finishing up sideboarding and shuffling. It's interesting to note too. I mean, like we said, post board, that's typically where the black-white deck is going to make its points back. But in this situation, got by Connor doesn't mean that it wasn't a hard-fought battle. Just an interesting thing to note.
Let's have a look at some of the key cards in this sideboard. We've got Wrath of the Skies, White Orchard Phantoms, Vindicates, Four Seasons, Deafening Silences, and Clarion. Is that Conqueror? I'm so dyslexic. Consequencer,
Yeah,
some sort of big free flyer for free.
It's a 3/3 dragon. The active abilities of artifacts and planeswalkers cannot be activated. Any creatures, excuse me. So it's just like a Stony Silence that hits more things, but it's another mana, and it's just one of these new cards we've seen from Dragonstorm that players are trying out. It does have certain spots where it's great. I mean, the fact that it's one more mana against the artifact decks, which is awkward, but Stony Silence isn't ending the games as much as you would expect, but also covering decks like Broodscale kind of matter. And hitting things like Planeswalkers means, the Affinity deck, when you do play this, it does stop some of their backup plans being like Imri and Tamiyo.
So out of those cards, what do you like bringing in? Or what do you think they brought in?
I mean, Deafening Silence is sort of like the go-to for this.
Yeah.
Only play one non-creature spell. Gonna be hard to beat that. Thoughtseize, pretty good. Vindicate, surprisingly, you kind of want to have that a couple times because of the awkwardness of Ruby. And you see Devin here having some rough mulligans, not getting the hand that we wanted. But those are kind of the big things. And everything else I'm not super in love with. I could see Wrath of the Skies. Once again, you just have some awkward things you need to answer. But it's a lot of mana in this deck, to actually answer those things. You don't have extra energy producers.
So going to be going down to 5. So, yeah, as you said, pretty awkward. But I don't know if this is forced mulligans or disciplined mulligans. Like knowing how good that Deathly Silence is going to be, how good Thoughtseize is going to be able to disrupt the early turns. Having a look, looks like we're going to keep. A couple are going to go back over on Connor's side, kept the full 7, exactly what Storm wants to happen. We'll kind of touch over their sideboard quickly just while they're kind of resolving this. So we've got Silence, Prismatic Ending, Past in Flames, Grape Shot, Orange Chant, Empty the Warrens, Brotherhood's End, Blood Moon, and a Braids. As it looks like we're going to start off with a Surveil. We're going to keep that on top, pass the turn back. Just going to shortcut a little bit here. Maybe time's a constraint. Surveil, one side's going to have the Emperor of Bones. It's going to exile the land. The other is going to Surveil.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think both players, I think time is an issue because there's no real reason to do this quickly if there wasn't some sort of issue. Yeah. And I think what you're seeing here is Devin's like, oh, I'm going to get this. And Connor's like, hey, I'm playing quickly for our time's sake here. And Devin's like, oh, my bad. I didn't realize this was like,
Yeah, it would be an end of turn, not a main phase, so to speak. So that Emperor Bones wouldn't have been able to do anything. 1 point of damage off the islet, but then we're going to have the Rao is going to come down. If that sticks around, we could just see the game end next turn.
Yeah, Devin wants to be able to answer this. It is often how the Storm deck wins. Connor has another one in hand, but Mullally would much rather win next turn than keep setting up. The setting up is how you're going to lose.
I see a Fatal Push brought to the front of the hand here. Deciding on this shock land, do we want to be shocking it in? I think we do. Fatal Push is going to get rid of that first Rao.
If you don't have anything to do, get the Rao back, and then adapt it and make it super big in order to push, damage. I like this here. Just make your guy into a 4/4 and put Connor on the back foot. That's how we won game 1. We got a little lucky with our cards lining up correctly. We had a good clock, and we're on 5 cards this game. Let's try and make something happen. And Connor has an answer for it, but doesn't have a land.
Oh, that's the Vindicate out the sideboard. It's going to take out the islet. That means there's no more blue mana just yet, especially once your opponent's missed a land drop and still missing land drops. Not a bad mold of 5 if we can stall our opponent here.
That's the dragon we saw earlier. Okay, that's the Planeswalker one we talked about. I thought it was a Vindicate. Yeah, good. And this is what Devin needs.
Okay, this looks a lot better than Stony Silence right now. Being able to turn it sideways, get that 3 damage in. Connor's down to 10. No play though. With 4 mana open, 5 mana open now. We could basically play anything in our deck at this point.
Yeah, and
more discard. Brother's End came in.
Now, here's the thing, though. If Connor probably has a lot of rituals in hand, he can maybe win with an untapped land. if Mullally goes ritual into like medallion or into Ral into some rituals, we could win this game. It is not unrealistic. This isn't me, BSing to like get you hyped at home. Connor legitimately can win if we hit like a mountain here. And we're seeing an Aven Interrupter.
Oh my word, able to take it down. 4 life, flash in the 2/2 to mount whatever you play, attack you down. Connor stuck on that one land, courtesy of that Vindicate. 5, got Mulligan down to 5. Did not matter for Devin, taking down and advancing to a 5-0 record. So congratulations to them. One more time, please, production. I didn't read that bit. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're about to hand it on over to our co-commentators there. But, Connor Mullally, wow. He showed the hand too. I was looking at it. Will, we could have won. We would need the route to work out everything to happen. But Connor was, and obviously the mind sensor is going to stop us at that point, right? But like, assuming that we were just racing, there was no chance to win there. Shows, I think, how powerful the Storm deck can be and why players like Connor are picking it up and playing it and putting time in. Impressive stuff.
Not only that, you said Vindicates in the side, but I was like, that doesn't seem like the sort of card I'd bring in against it. But it had its moment. It got him a game and got him the W. And it's now given that options that they probably double ID, and we'll see them in the top 8 a little bit later on. Before we go, though, Mason, let's remind everybody watching, if they want to take part in future NRG events, what we've got going on. Get these dates that we've just released in the diary now, nice and early, so you can book those hotels and book those flights. One last time, talk me through it.
Yeah, July 19th to 20th at St. Paul, Minnesota. We got Modern Showdown 10K on Saturday. Sunday, 5K Legacy Trial, Legacy players. We love you. Come on out. Have some fun. We'd love to have you in that event. August 23rd, 24th, Lansing, Michigan. Double 10K weekend. Saturday, Standard Showdown, 10K. Sunday, Team Trial, $10,000 prize pool again with Standard Modern Popper. Popper players, we gave you a side event at one of the events, during the Breach heyday. You really came out. You loved it. We want to see, can we make Popper a regular part of this? If you're a Popper lover, please come out. Show us that you really like this, and we'll continue to support it. September 13th to 14th, Mundelein, Illinois, Modern Showdown 10K. 5K, to be determined trial. We're trying to figure out what format makes the most sense. Is it supposed to be Popper, Legacy, Pioneer, Standard? We don't know. We're trying to figure that out and make it what's best for you with the players. That's our number one priority here in the NRG series. So we're going to let you all know about that as soon as we make that final decision. That'll be coming to you very soon. In November 1st and 2nd in Elmhurst, Illinois, Team 10K Showdown, Standard Sealed Modern. We know we got some sealed lovers. June 20th, 29th, we'll be in Indianapolis as well, doing some sealed on Sunday. And then Modern 10K Showdown to end the year for the NRG series on November 2nd as well there in Elmhurst. It's going to be a fun time, just like I had a fun time with you here, Will, today.
It's always a pleasure, my friend, being carried by you. You need to go get yourself, relax a little bit, fuel up, get a massage, come back tomorrow ready. Because me and you are back tomorrow, but we've got different partners. And so something we're going to be seeing a little bit later on, because we're going to have a short break. And then when we come back, it is going to be Drake and Devin carrying on the show to eventually crown ourselves a winner here at the NRG. So for me, from Mason, hope you had a good one, and we'll see you all a little bit later on after this break.